Every night we're here at 7. Every night we're dropping jewels. Every night we're bringing information, new vibration. And tonight will be no exception. Oh yeah. Now, for sure, this evening we had a wonderful sit down in the Tigers Temple. Give thanks for all of those who were in the house. Give thanks to the man Tony Tops. Give thanks for Little Moore. Give thanks for Kwesi. And give thanks for all of those who were definitely in the house with us and sharing the vibration and balancing off the melody. And of course, you know, previous night we were speaking of, well, the title was really Rastafari, the Bible and ancient Egypt. And of course, the subject area really lived up to the title. But as I said previous night, and I know I'm not wrong, no one really expected us to carry it to that level. That's for sure. And I'm very happy with the level that we carried it. Of course, those of you that were there, you would have seen that we made the strong comparison with the hymns, the hymn to attend, and that of Psalms 104. We went through the whole thing and we definitely evaluated it. And also we went through different ancient writings, the hymn to Ptah and the hymn of Atum. Of course, the writings of Amen M. Hopet, pardon me, and of course the comparison of that with the, what was it now, the Proverbs of Solomon. When we look at these ancient Kemetic writings and scrolls, and when we compare them to a lot of the scriptures of the Bible, we see the exact thing. Now, of course, there are those, especially those who were not there, those who didn't take the time to come into the Tigers Temple, who may be squirming and say, oh no, that's not true, and try to talk all kind of things. Let's not pay attention to that. Trust me, you can't be playing around with that. We take our time to make a presentation that people can't deny. We told you where to come and how you get there. Now that we're done and we come and we just kind of reviewing it, you can't jump in now and try to defend nothing and you weren't there. When we put everything on the table, it's undeniable, Rasta. You hold up them ancient Kemetic scriptures. I'm not talking about interpretation. I'm not talking about the story of Newton now that sounds similar to the story of Noah. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about taking up the hymn to attend and taking up Psalms 104 and looking at the both of them and seeing the same thing coming down the line. That's what I'm talking about. Taking up the ancient writings of the hymn to Atum, the hymn to Ptah, and looking at the Genesis creation story and seeing the exact thing. We did that last night for those of you who were in the temple. We did that previous night. And as I said previous night, because anyone who you see jumping about now, people don't like this kind of conversation. You know why? Because we're too dogmatic and too religious. I ain't saying nothing wrong. All I said is that the hymn to attend and Psalms 104 is exactly the same. Can you deny that? No, you can't. So what you itching, what you twisting around for? Did I give an opinion yet? Up to now, I don't give an opinion, you know. No, but I know that those spinning around and twisting around. Now, of course, in the temple, you're not going to get too many people twisting and spinning around, because to come into the temple, you have to make a contribution. So that means now you have to show value and respect to the work. Haters and fighters and people who just want to follow you to you know what I mean, to find something wrong with what you're saying, they're not going to support the temple like that. That's the truth. Even if they come once, they ain't going to do it every week. It's the truth, because to them, they're supporting you. Yeah. So those of you who value the work, enough respect to you. Those of you who appreciate what we are doing, enough respect. And those who can see that when Preciser comes and grab the microphone, it's not no regular talk. You better believe it, especially when I tell you this is going to be a special presentation. You know it's the truth. Even a regular sit down is a special presentation, but I'm giving you a couple of days and say, hey, I'm working on something that I want to present Sunday night. Man, you know, it's a volcano going to blow up. Come on, let's be honest. And I respect those of you, I respect those of you who by now see the qualifications we have. I ain't holding it back. Some people, you say, hey, we're doing a lecture this night. What's the subject area? Let me hear the subject and let me decide. Hear what subject. Enough respect to those of you who don't even care what the subject is. What? Precise up? We'll be there. Enough respect. Triple thumbs up or what? Thumbs and toes up. Yeah, I give thanks. You know, trust me, from my heart, I give thanks. So yeah, man, as I was saying now, this ain't about no opinion. If you noticed last night in the temple, we didn't share too much of opinions. We just dropped the facts. And you see, that is our problem. We are afraid of the facts. So we become uncomfortable now when we hear, you know, the truth. And sometimes you'll be surprised, you know, the same truth may be a benefit to us, but we're just afraid. You know, Christ wasn't born in the place you call Bethlehem. No, I don't want to hear that. You're blaspheming. Imagine that. Imagine that. I am saying that Jesus wasn't born in Bethlehem. You tell me I blaspheme. Now wait, suppose I tell you Jesus wasn't born at all. Then what? Wow, I'd be more than blaspheming there. You see, so we don't take the time. I'm showing you the writings of Amen Mhotep or Hopet, depending on how you pronounce it. We looked at that last night, family. How many of you were there? Come on, you got to come to the Tiger's Temple if you're serious about this thing. And we align them up with the Proverbs, Rasta. Practically word for word. And nobody can deny that. What I want to do now is to revisit one of the stories we spoke about last night or previous night. And that, for those of you who were there, I'm sure you remember the stories of Sinuhe. Those of you who were there, the story of Sinuhe. And the whole science with the stories of Sinuhe. Ancient Kemetic writings, according to what we were bringing out previous night, we're looking at least 2,000 years BCE. And a lot of the writings in the stories of Sinuhe, very similar again to biblical writings. Remember, you know, family, as I told my audience previous night in the Tiger's Temple, we are scholars. We are researchers. I don't mean me, all of us. This is not the time to get emotional with information and get emotional and religious with new knowledge. In fact, when you are an individual that loves knowledge and information, without the religious you getting in the way, you'll be so delightful or delighted, pardon me, for the levels of information that you are getting. Imagine you realize that, hey, here we have a story. Let me not get to that. Let me do this one first. Here we have the hymn to attend. And when we read the hymn to attend, it's the exact storyline of Psalms 104. Wow, that's heavy. And the hymn to attend is older, by the way. That is heavy. Now, I'm not going to go into the opinions here. We covered that last night. Because I know just for me saying that, some people that may be listening to me never saw the hymn to attend. Maybe they never even really took the time to read Psalms 104. But just me saying that alone, that is going to add to maybe some already foregone conclusion that they already had. What? We said the hymn to attend is same as Psalms 104? And the hymn to attend older? Yeah, boy, I tell you the Bible is true, you know. I tell you so, you know. That's just one of the conclusions that you may come to because of hearing that. You yourself didn't do too much research, you know, you just heard somebody say something and you already have a, you know, a perceived outlook. Long time of this Bible talk and all of that. So you just jump on it right away. No, man, we're not looking for that. No, man, them things don't impress me. Them things don't impress me. Even if you are a Bible bunny and you hear that, and that's the next set of people out, they're going to say, oh, I don't believe that. Who him to Atam who? No, I don't believe that. Nothing can older than the words of God, and that's it. No research, no need to hear no other thing. They just locked it off. To me, the two of them is the same. They're ignorant, they're stiff-necked, and they're not open-minded. Whatever side of the equation you are on, Rasta, and you come across them kind of information, you're supposed to say, wow, this is interesting. Let's look deeper into this. Good stuff. Dust it off. Let's read it again. Of course, ready for battle mode, trying to defend your religious gods. When you come across information clearly showing you that, hey, listen, we're talking about an ancient writing, Amen Mop, and you compare that to the Proverbs and you have the two books in front of you and you're reading the same story. And yes, Amen Mop is older than the Proverbs, by the way, for sure. And then you say, wow, this is interesting stuff. So now we're going to the writings of the story of Sinuhe. This is all ancient Kemetic. And I'm going to read a story here from Sinuhe. We touched this previous night for those of you who are with us in the Tiger's Temple. So you would know where we're going with this one. But I want to go into it much deeper. And this is why we began this program this evening with these sacred sounds and these sacred words from the sacred Negus himself.
It is good that you are here to record this picture of me in my palace garden at Addis Ababa. People who see this throughout the world will realize that even in the 20th century,
yes,
with faith, courage, and a just cause, David will still beat Goliath.
Now listen to this story here. It says, one day a strong man from Syria, Palestine, pushed his way into my tent and challenged me to a duel. He was a warrior without equal. He had never lost a duel. Every heart embraced me as the underdog. You listening? He was armed with a shield and an axe and a whole armful of javelins. One after another, I dodged his javelins and sidestepped his arrows. I waited finally. The strong man rushed me. Then I shot him in the neck with an arrow. With a loud cry, he fell on his face, mortally wounded. I finished him off with his own axe, and then stood on his back and let out my battle cry, while all the people of Syria, Palestine thundered their applause. And that is from the stories of Sinuhe, approximately 1991 to 1962 BCE. We're talking about 2000 years BCE, 4,000 years at least ago. Now, does that story sound familiar to any story that you know, whether biblical or otherwise? Of course, it would sound like the story of David and Goliath. Now, although it sounds similar, somebody again, the dogmatic is going to jump up. No, it's not the same place. It's not the same place. They're not from the same place. And he took an axe. Goliath had a sword. Yeah, that's where you're wrong. And no. It's all mixed up because I hear people talking, maybe not about this specific story, but when you show ones the comparison of ancient writings and that of the Bible. And I mean, listen to family. You see, this is not about the Bible, you know. You find similarity in all ancient writings amongst themselves. As we mentioned previous night, even if you gather all these books from Kemet throughout the different ages, the storyline is similar with different names. Then you go into other books, you know, other ancient texts from India and China and these places, and you look at their ancient stories and you see a lot of similarities. That's why you see the flood story in many other places and a lot of different stories, the story of the Christ child and so with different names and maybe slightly different, but the theme is the same. You know, but we just have this strong, you know, we are a people that we grew up on the Bible and we all know how the Bible has been utilized to keep us on a certain level, still up to this day and this time. So this is why we would put the Bible in the spotlight for obvious reasons. So it's not that this story is just similar to the story of David and Goliath. It's similar to other stories. You find the stories in the same story in other texts. So this is why we leave you now to go into your own psyche and try to find a suitable opinion for this sort of what may seem like a dilemma or quagmire, especially to the religious. Because nothing's supposed to look like your book. Those of us who are African, them things don't trouble us. We're known for that. I've explained this countless of times. We're known for this. I mean, in the next 500 years, you know, within our culture, a new dynasty create a new book. Give it a different name. Have some new names in there for the gods and the goddesses. But it's the same story, and we don't mind. We don't mind because we understand time moves on and it's the same one God. It's the same one God. So that is why those who call themselves monotheists come in and say, oh, they're polytheistic. Yeah. We never even call ourselves that. It's the monotheistic people that run and call people that they think worship more than one God, polytheistic. You worship many gods. We ain't worship many gods. We don't worship no gods. You're the one that worship Odin. You check. We, you know, pay homage to the Neter. So get the language correct too. Can't make us fall into them word trap all the time talking about we worship many gods. I mean, how many Odin you have? No, I'm serious. You got to know how to be serious with people sometimes with their conversation. So let's return to this now. Now, again, it's obvious that it has a similar sound to David and Goliath. But what's more interesting to me, yes, I agree. I mean, it's obviously different. It's not the exact same thing, but it's close enough. Remember, you know, the David and Goliath thing, the reason why we pull this out, you know, is because the David and Goliath story, the way that we are taught, it's supposed to be so unique, historically, you know, precise and historically cut out, that for you to be reading the same story in an older book, that don't sound right. And then you find it in other books too, under different names, it don't sound right. But then when we have an African frame of mind and we understand that's how we live and new books are written, and we carry on our tradition, it's not a problem because all stories belong to Anansi. Hey, I'm so happy this is the Tiger's Nest audience here, you know. Another level of faithful people that definitely make it their business to come and find us right here on radio. I know you understand. Yeah, straight up, give thanks. I respect those of you who make sure you come to the PreciseInstitute.com and make sure you sit into the Tiger's Nest every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday for this information. Straight up, not to disrespect no one. Some ones will never hear it unless you put it on the YouTube for them. You know, so you have different levels of people that are seeking for this knowledge. That's why we create the temple. Hey, you remember the first night we did the open mic about 2 strongs ago? The open mic is something similar to the temple, you know, but it just gives you a better chance to come in and speak your piece. The first open night we did, the first one, a devil come in there with their Playboy catalog, and that make us lock down open mic. Can you imagine that? So that is what the Tigers Temple does. Because that same demon that did that, they ain't gonna be paying no money to come into the temple, especially not every week, because it would look like they're supporting it. You see, this is our psychology. This is why I always say we gotta be serious about knowledge. Speaking of catalog and speaking of YouTube, honestly, when it comes to really, you know, if a person really looking for the truth, I honestly from my heart think we have put down enough works that if you take your time and you go through our YouTube channel, you will find what you're looking for. I'm positive, especially if it's the truth. If you're looking for something make-believe, well, you ain't gonna find it. But if you're sincerely looking for the truth, you don't know what it is, you will find some truth by just going through all of the videos that we've done. How many videos we have on YouTube? We got to be in the thousands. So even if you don't see us on YouTube for a month, I would like to see the person that can raise the hand and say, I've watched everything. Some people only start to watch us maybe 3 months ago. And a lot of people watch what comes out new. And maybe, you know, if something appears on their screen, they click it and see what it is. But how many of us take our time to go through? Some of us do this, enough respect to those of you who do this, and go through every video twice a day. I know people that say they make sure they watch 2 of my old videos every day, plus whatever else I come out with, so that they can catch up. Enough respect to you, because listen, I take the information I bring very serious, very serious, because this is not just knowledge. This is more than knowledge. This is a lot of understanding and wise mind that comes with the information that comes out of the tiger's nest. I'm telling you the truth. So in the same way, I don't want to sound, I know I sound a way to some people sometimes, but I'm just being honest. It's the levels that we bring with the tiger's nest is not something that you can compare to nothing else. Straight up. In its lane, in its lane. Not putting myself over nobody else, but in its lane. It's a specific lane. It's the lane of the mystics. Not just the lane of knowledge. I'm sure there's those that have more knowledge than me. I never base myself as no knowledge king, and more information, and can break down, you know, they can tell you more about Sinuhe than me. I never pretend that, boy, I got it all. I'm Professor Jack. No. But I know for sure there's a mystic ingredient. I got a secret ingredient here that I throw in my pot that makes it different than the other pots that be bubbling. And that's just the truth. You deny that? Stand up and say your piece. Let me hear what you have to say. You can't deny what I'm saying. And because of that, I'm telling you, you don't know how much I appreciate those of you who realize that and act in accordance. Trust me. You just don't know. Maybe I have to meet you in flesh so you can know how much I really appreciate those who appreciate the levels of information that we bring. Yeah. Those who make sure they subscribe to the Tiger's Nest, enough respect. Those who make sure they come to the temple. Those who go in the website and say, hey, I need all them videos here of these lectures that I never see. Them videos is what have the power. You looking for answers, you need to check them videos, the online lectures that we have done, that you can get on our YouTube, our website. You understand? Remember, this is Radio Anue, International Flavor, Universal Spice, because I got another set of weirdos. Oh, just advertising too much. This is a radio station, man. What you think keep radio stations up? You don't donate to it. What you think keep radio stations up? That's how you do it. So again, enough respect to those of you who are subscribers to the Tiger's Nest. Enough respect from the heart to precise. Yeah, man, I big you up. Yeah, man, I big you up. All them loafers and opportunists, we're not into that. And these ones charlatans, that's what they are. A champion named Goliath. I'm reading now from 1 Samuel. A champion named Goliath, who was from Gath, came out of the Philistine camp. So he came out of the Philistine camp. Now this says a champion. This is from the Bible. A champion named Goliath from the Philistine camp. But Sinuhe says, a strong man, champion strong man. And he is from Syria, Palestine. One is Philistine and one is Palestine. Interesting. And do you know that many biblical scholars connect Philistine with Palestine? Interesting. Well, the story of Sinuhe says that a strong man, Palestine, the Bible says a champion, Philistine, Goliath. And Goliath, he had a bronze helmet on his head and wore a coat of scale armor of bronze on his legs. His legs, he bronze graves, and a bronze javelin was slung on his back. And remember, in the story of Sinuhe, it says he was armed with a shield, an axe, a whole armful of javelins. But the interesting thing is that javelins is mentioned there, and the armor is mentioned as well. All right, fair enough. You know the story in the Bible, reaching into his bag and taking out the stone. David slung it and struck the Philistine in the forehead. The stone sank into his forehead, and he fell face down on the ground. And David ran and stood over him. He took hold of the Philistine's sword and drew it. After he killed him, he cut off his head with a sword, with the same sword. Then the men of Israel and Judah surged out with a shout in pursuit of the Philistines. Well, that's different than the story you just read there, brother. I don't see the similarity. Yeah, you sure? The man said that Goliath fell face down to the ground. In the story of Sinuhe, it says that with a loud cry, he fell on his face, mortally wounded. You're going to tell me that is not the same thing? Then David says that he ran and he stood over him. According to Sinuhe, he said that he went and stood on his back. According to the book of Samuel, David, after he killed him, he cut off his head with the Philistines' own sword. According to Sinuhe, it says that I finished him off with his own axe. You understand? Then in Samuel now, it says, then the men of Israel and Judah surged forth with a shout. That's interesting, because it says here in Sinuhe, and they let out battle cry, while all the people of Syria, Palestine thundered their applause, because in Samuel they pursued the Philistines, Palestine, champion, strong man. He was armed with a shield and an axe and a whole arm full of javelins, while this one has on his bronze helmet, and he wore the coat of bronze and all on his legs, and he had javelins that was slung on his back. Interesting. And after the attack, you know, the giant, the champion, fell on his face to the ground. One says he fell on his face, mortally wounded. Same thing. One person stood over him while the other person stood on his back. It's the same thing. David stood over him. In fact, in the movies, David actually ran on his back. And Sinuhe said he stood on his back. And both of them took away his sharp object. Both of them took either his sword or his axe. and dealt with him there. It's the same story. In fact, what I found interesting in Sinuhe's story is that the author is saying that he dodged several javelins. And although it's a different story, but it's from the same environment when David was dodging the javelins of Saul. Remember, David was dodging Saul's javelins when Saul was going mad, and David had to come and play on the harp for him. You understand? So again, Sinuhe is like 2,000 years old. And we're dealing with the story of David. That's about, let's say, 1,000 BCE. So Sinuhe, not 2,000 years old, pardon me, 2,000 years BCE, Sinuhe, 2,000 years BCE, 4,000 years old. While the David and Goliath episode would be approximately 1,000 BC. So that'll be 1,000 years. That's a long time. 1,000 years ain't no little bit of time. So the David and Goliath incident would have taken place 1,000 years after the writing of the story of Sinuhe. That's just what it is. Now, if you want to lose sleep over that, or go and try to figure out if you're following the right way, that's up to you. Maybe because I think, how should I put it? I think because I have passed them stages there, I have a little more appreciation for this kind of knowledge. I don't take this knowledge and try to figure out, boy, am I right? Or is the Bible this up? No, I've passed that stage. Believe me, I gone so far. You know, I just delight to come across this sort of information, and I delight more in sharing it with you. Because in reality, in a family, I mean, come on, that's why I give thanks to those who take the time. See, like they finish listening to this tonight, they're going back on the YouTube channel and they're going through all the videos. They want to hear everything that we have said in the past that they would have missed, because they know things that we have done, lectures we would have done, online lectures that we would have done, even our books and everything lead up to this kind of conversation. This is not a one-off conversation. Like I just say, wow, look at these two things, and I try to crack your skull. This is critical thinking.
It is good that you are here to record this picture of me in my palace garden at Addis Ababa. People who see this throughout the world will realize that.
For those of you who may not know the speech, people who see this throughout the world would realize that.
Even in the 20th century.
Even in the 20th century. Not 2,000 years BC. Not 1,000 years BC. Even in the 20th century.
With faith, courage, and a just cause.
With faith, courage, and the just cause.
David will still beat Goliath.
David would still beat Goliath. Now, with a good serving of ignorance and maybe a side of stiff-neckedness and a spoonful of hard-headedness. Many ones would hear that. Oh, that's what he's saying all the time? Boy, he ain't no David. What are we talking about, you see? Which school did you go to? Okay, that is why you think so. You see? The emperor is showing you, and I'm so happy that he clarified even in the 20th century. So that takes it out of some old time thing. He's showing you that he is the David that has just defeated Goliath, because this was said when he returned to the palace. You know that in 1941. You following this? This is when Mussolini was destroyed. Mussolini. England had to come and help Selassie. Now, although that is not necessarily true, because you know we cover all of this already. England helped Selassie. Haile Selassie helped England. If you understand what was going on in the war, man, I can't go into that right now. But we've covered all of this. Give thanks for the students. This is like an appreciation night for those of you who are serious about this information. Give thanks for you. So I ain't got to go back to all of that. Haile Selassie is who helped Britain to win, keep their crown. And you don't understand this. But for those who like to say, oh, Britain had to help him and this and that. Some even like to say, oh, the Queen. Which Queen? Which Queen? That's why I just eat up people when they come with that foolishness. Oh, Selassie ran to the Queen. Yeah, and Africans sold Africans into slavery. And the thing is, these people can't prove none of them things. Even the Africans sell African ones, even though I would humble and say, maybe, you know what I mean, there's some level of that you can prove. Most of the people that chat that can't prove it. Them is slaves. Any black person that talk that crap about Africa sold Africa, and they can't tell you, yeah, man, if you look at page 65 in the book, they should be punished for that. To me, that's a weasel, that's a sellout, that's a hater. You want to talk about Africans sell Africans and you can't prove it. So why you say that? You can't prove it. Even if something goes so, go and get the research properly before you stop a conscious conversation to bring it down. To me, you have to be some kind of spy to even think to say that in a wholesome conversation, and then you can't prove it and put it on the table talking about, I can Google it and come back. Man, we should tie you up. I wouldn't even say what else we should do to you. I'm serious about these things, you know. Man, when I hear people say that to me, all I see is a real Negro, a real feel nigger to the fullest that say that. So anyone of you that like to say that, that's how I think of you, especially when you can't go for the evidence and say, look at here, at the click of a finger. You have to go and dig up something and let me go and look for it. So why did you say that and you can't prove it? Who you work for? I digress a bit there, you know, but yeah. So even in the 21st century, because this is David slewing Goliath. How did David slew Goliath? How did Sinuhe slew the champion from Syria, Palestine? David took Goliath's sword, and David used Goliath's own sword and slew him. Sinuhe took the champion from Syria, Palestine's axe. He took his weapon, his own weapon, and slew him. So when some of you like to say, oh, Britain had to help him, that is the sword of Europe. The king took Europe's own sword. The king took Europe's own sword and slew Europe. Remember, it's the League of Nations. The League of Nations is Europe. That came to nothing. World War II is European. Just destruction. Even the same England and these places had a hard time rebuilding themselves. The shiny little Europe that you saw in the 90s and the 80s, maybe when you were born, boy, if you know what's going on 2-3 decades before that. I'm talking about war-ridden, holes in buildings, Germany, Poland, wherever, England, them place was ravished by war. When they were killing one another, Ethiopia was back on the rise again. People don't understand that history there, you know? And it's Goliath's own sword that Haile Selassie used to slew him. It's the champion's own axe that Sinuhe used to slew him, which all represents the King of Kings. But you see, we're very religious. So in our religious outlook, it is very hard for us to comprehend the ancient science that is before us.